From the KELOLAND Digital Desk, I'm meteorologist Scott Mundt. This is Weather or Not. Coming up on today's show, Halloween, that's tomorrow. We'll have a closer look at this Halloween forecast, which includes a chance at seeing a couple of flakes of snow. Maybe a quick hit of light snow can show up for some. You know, we've had some reports of that in northeastern South Dakota this morning. The weekend forecast, so again, the day after Halloween, tomorrow being Friday, we are looking at the weekend forecast, probably starting cool, and then we'll warm on Sunday. Get those temperatures back well above average, 50s, 60s, even a chance for 70-degree weather to show up in western South Dakota. Our pattern, what's going on as we get into the month of November, we'll take a look at the next 2 weeks. So that takes us through the first half of the new month. As right now, it looks like we'll stay warm. We'll show you why coming up. And the snowfall trend, what's expected with getting our first measurable snow. And for some, I cannot rule out if that happens for tomorrow. Here's Futurecast. We've been following a cold front that has sparked these light rain showers, maybe even a hit of snow or two in parts of eastern and northeastern South Dakota. This front will continue to move to the east. Right behind it, we'll have west to northwest winds. That will help bring in clearing skies. Sunshine expected during the afternoon in eastern South Dakota. And then look what happens as we get into tomorrow morning. It's already pointing to this chance for a light wintry mix as we get into your morning, 7, 8 o'clock, into north central, northeastern South Dakota, showing that chance for a light wintry mix. And then that moves to the south as we go through the day. And then by the time we do get into the noon hour on Saturday, we'll have dry skies. It will be a cool day. Temperatures for Saturday, probably in the 40s and 50s in the east, and maybe a little bit warmer across the west. In the meantime, today, our winds will come in from the northwest behind that front. So it'll take its time to move across eastern South Dakota, but during the afternoon, I do expect to see this west to northwest wind. We could see a couple of gusts near 20 in and around Sioux Falls. Probably a little stronger for central and western South Dakota. They can get those wind gusts 25 to near 30. And then as we get into tomorrow, we will continue with some stronger winds from the northwest. Notice the break that we get on Saturday, which is good considering the cool air or cold air that's in place. And then as we get into the rest of the weekend on Sunday, we'll get a southerly wind, and that will help us warm. Notice that strong southeast wind in Rapid City coming in around 32 miles per hour. So it will become windy as we hit the second half of the weekend as compared to what's expected for the first half. Our forecast for today, now the 20% that you see across north central into eastern South Dakota, maybe parts of Minnesota, that's for this morning. As the front moves through, winds become west to northwest, helps bring in this drier air. Look for a decrease in cloud cover, sunshine for the afternoon. And afternoon highs will reach the 50s and 60s. And for tonight, temperatures will fall to the 20s in western South Dakota, 30s tonight in central and eastern KELOLAND. Coming up after the break, we'll take a closer look at this Halloween forecast. We'll bring in 3 different computer models and what they are thinking for Halloween. Stay with us. You're watching Weather or Not. And welcome back to Weather or Not. I'm meteorologist Scott Mundt. Let's go ahead and hit the weather graphics here. And I only have, today, tomorrow to use this? So I have to get it in while I can. We'll take a look at 3 different forecast models to take a close look at what you can expect for Halloween, as we are forecasting a chance at a couple of scattered showers. Both that may fall in the form of rain and or snow in eastern and northeastern South Dakota. Now, the first model we're looking at is the European. This is starting as early as 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. And then as we continue to go through time, notice how it moves that precipitation to the south. This is at 3 in the afternoon, and you have to look close, but it does bring in a chance for maybe a light wintry mix across parts of northeastern South Dakota, to include the Watertown area. It's trying to bring in maybe a light wintry mix into that location. as we continue with time here, this will continue to make its way down to the south. So we'll go ahead and expand our view. Notice as we get into the evening hours, just in time to have trick-or-treaters in your neighborhood, still looking at a chance at a couple of scattered showers in eastern and southeastern KELOLAND. And then that will eventually come to an end as we go into the overnight. Now, this is a look at our in-house model, and this is showing that a lot of this may start in the form of light snow in northeastern South Dakota. You see those dots of blue, north central, northeastern KELOLAND, a chance at a couple of light snow showers showing up into those locations. As we do warm during the afternoon, it moves back over into green, signifying that's falling in the form of rain showers by 3 in the afternoon. What happens as we get closer into the evening? It's trying to make that switch over to light snow as we get into the evening hours, and those temperatures do start to cool. And, the idea here behind the Barron model, that's our in-house model, it's showing how the scattered nature of the showers across eastern KELOLAND. So that's the point I wanted to get across with that model. And the American model, not as aggressive as the European, but it is still showing at least the chance at a couple of these scattered showers across eastern South Dakota and Minnesota and Iowa as we do continue into the later part of the afternoon and for the evening. So we'll continue to follow at least that chance for a couple of showers in eastern KELOLAND. Keep in mind, it will be cool too. Afternoon highs only in the 40s. That will cover many locations. You see that 3 o'clock, by the time we do get into the 6 o'clock hour, we'll be hovering around 40 for many locations. And of course, that temperature will continue to drop as we go through the evening. Keep in mind the wind too. That may add an extra bite to the air. We'll talk about your weekend forecast coming up right after the break. Welcome back to Whether or Not. The weekend, it's getting closer, just about here. We've been talking about Halloween being tomorrow, so what's expected once we get beyond Halloween? Well, with high pressure and control of our weather for Saturday, well, it'll be chilly as that is coming in from the northwest, and the strong northwest winds on Friday will help bring in the cooler air. You see, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we may be stuck in the 40s for temperatures in central and eastern KELOLAND, maybe a little bit warmer across western South Dakota. And then as we get into the evening, look how quickly the temperatures cool. By 6 o'clock in the evening, numbers in the 30s, where you do see that darker shade of green. That covers central into eastern, southeastern South Dakota, and of course into the hills of western KELOLAND. And that just becomes a little more widespread as we do hit the late evening hours on Saturday. And for Sunday should be a little bit warmer. We are forecasting numbers in the 60s in western and south central South Dakota. This is a look at temperatures in the late morning getting into the early afternoon, as those 60s will try to make their way towards the James River Valley. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there is the chance that we can see numbers in the 70s in western South Dakota. And you notice the dry skies that we have in our forecast for Saturday. That continues Saturday night right into Sunday afternoon. And I should mention this too. It's time to fall back. We have to change those clocks this weekend. Saturday night going into Sunday morning. And as we do take a look at the detailed forecast for this weekend, we'll start cool Saturday. Numbers in the 40s. A couple of us will hit the 50s. 50s will show up in central and western South Dakota. And then we do warm. We do start to warm with these temperatures back to the 60s, maybe a couple of 70s for the second half of the weekend. So again, the first half is looking cool. Temperatures in the middle 40s in eastern KELOLAND. But then we do warm, with many of us returning to the 60s by the time we do get into Sunday. And all this happens with dry skies. Speaking of dry skies or dry conditions, let's go ahead and take a look at the latest drought monitors that came out today. And just to recap over the past 7 days, I know we've had these hit and miss showers in parts of northeastern South Dakota. A lot of them have been the miss type instead of the hit, but you do see a estimate there near Fulton around 1/4 of an inch over the past week. Same for Mitchell, close to 1/4 of an inch. And then into the northern hills, Spearfish at about 1/2 inch. But we do see those higher end totals in the Minnesota, Iowa. That just happened a couple of days ago with the rain that moved through there. The estimates anywhere from 1/2 inch to a full inch, maybe even a little bit more for those areas near Worthington. So there's been more misses than hits, I would say, over the past 7 days. Now, how do things compare over the past 30 days? This is starting to fill in a lot more with the yellow and maybe the brown colors, as we've been missing out on a lot of the precipitation aside from northwestern South Dakota. They've been still getting their hits of precipitation over the past several days. As you can see, the estimates here over the past 30 days were around half for Sioux Falls, about 2/3 near Huron, toward Watertown, we'll say Aberdeen, but look at winter, south central South Dakota. They've been missing out about 1/3 of what they usually receive over the past month, and then you do see how those amounts do improve. North central to western South Dakota, closer to average, anywhere from 87% Mobridge to over 90% for Rapid City. So the drought monitor is showing this. It's starting to sneak into northeastern South Dakota. In fact, I can move the map here as we're starting to see the dry category in Watertown, Huron, Brookings, throughout western Minnesota. We continue with the moderate drought in southeastern South Dakota, and we do have these showers coming in for the next couple of days, but it looks like the amounts will stay less than 1/10 of an inch for many of us. And with the dry conditions coming in for next week, I wouldn't be surprised if we connect some of these dots here in the southeastern South Dakota with this moderate drought. We'll just see that area expand. That's showing up near Sioux Falls at the moment. Wouldn't be surprised to see that area expand, connect those dots there with that moderate drought. Let's take a trip over to the west. You see a lot of this hugging Interstate 90 into the south with our dry conditions, and they do sneak into Rapid City. Moderate drought there in the Panhandle of Nebraska, and we know all about the summer and the problems that we've had with the dry conditions across southwestern South Dakota. So hopefully we do start to get a little bit more precipitation in our forecast, but I really don't see this happening over the next couple of weeks. And here's the reason why. This is a look at our 500 millibar pattern. And when we look at this, we're looking at high pressure, low pressure, troughs, ridges in the atmosphere. We're cutting more or less the atmosphere in half and looking for those types of features. And this runs through 5 times. And a lot of this is being dominated by zonal flow, things moving west to east across the area. And when I woke up this morning, checked a couple of the computer models, I look at what's called a meteorogram, and it's more or less a bar graph as to what the forecast highs and lows are. And the one I was looking at more or less just stayed steady, right in the lower 60s. And I'm thinking, well, things really aren't changing. So it's probably just more of a zonal flow that we're in. And then when I look at other computer models and taking a look at what I just showed you, that more or less does tell the story. We'll eventually get into a zonal flow to keep those temperatures steady. And when that happens, it's really hard to get moisture, whatever's available that may ride that zonal pattern for lift in the atmosphere. Almost has to bring some of the moisture with it. And if we're stuck in this Pacific air, that really doesn't happen that much. So we're going dry skies as we go into next week. And warming too. So we'll have high pressure here to our south. Okay, a lot of that is anchored over Texas, and this is already Tuesday of next week. So we'll have high pressure here, and that will stay there for the next several days for next week. That helps bring in this warmer weather from the southwest, and that's what we will experience as we get into next week. And that's the reason why we do have temperatures that will stay well above average into the 60s. You have to think now that we have temperatures for climate average highs that continue to fall. Right now we're around the middle 50s in eastern and southeastern KELOLAND, and those numbers just continue to fall. By the time we do get into the end of that first week of the month or beginning of the second week, our average high then is in the upper 40s, 49 degrees. So those numbers will continue to fall as we continue to get into the later part of this year. And here's what's going on as we get into that second week of the month. We have this nice ridge here across the western United States, okay? That is another sign of some very warm air, and a lot of the air that we will feel will just come straight off the Pacific, okay? And it will be dry. And so I would not be surprised to see these above average temperatures continuing straight into that second week of the month. Sure, it tries to bring in maybe a cold front or two from time to time, but I don't think that will be long-lived. I think any cool downs that we do get will be short-lived and will probably warm up rather quickly, too. With the absence of any moisture that may be around, it's real easy to warm up when we have our dry ground. So here's what a typical November will bring. These are climate averages over the past 30 years. We start the month with temperatures in the lower 50s for highs and the overnight lows in the 20s to lower 30s. And then by the end of the month, we're in the middle to upper 30s in central and eastern KELOLAND, with those overnight lows falling to the teens. That'll be downright cold because we're just not used to having even average temperatures. So if we have average temperatures by the time we get into the end of the month and we more or less stay warm, that will feel downright cold. The precipitation, now those numbers continue to go down too because we're getting into the colder months. You can't hold as much moisture in the atmosphere. So the average precipitation continues to go down. As you see, the amounts range from around a half inch in western South Dakota and Rapid City to about an inch and a quarter in and around Sioux Falls. But it's also a month where we start to see our first measurable snows. And more or less that averages around 6 to maybe 6.5 inches across the area. Speaking of snow, we'll take a look at our latest snow trend when we come back. Stay with us. You're watching Weather or Not. Well, here we are in the last segment of Weather or Not, and this is the time of the show where I like to go over the snow trend. When can we receive our first measurable snow? Not a trace, but a tenth of an inch. That would be our first measurable snow. For some, we'll see, but for some, can it happen tomorrow? If we do get a couple of these snow showers in the morning, northeastern KELOLAND, it may happen. We'll continue to follow that. Oh, and what about this morning with our thick fog in southeastern KELOLAND? In fact, I do have, I got to use this. Yeah, our thick fog, southeastern KELOLAND from this morning. You count out 90 days, that takes us to January 28th for that chance for precipitation. We'll see if that one does hold true as we get toward the tail end of January. But just to do some homework, we've talked about the thick fog, and dating back to July 30th, that pointed to October 28th of getting some type of precipitation. Lo and behold, we got a tenth of an inch of rainfall that day. So what happens when we look at these other dates for Sioux Falls from August, September? We're looking at November 17th, maybe December 9th, when you're looking at the fog theory to bring in that precipitation chance. And what I'm doing while your graphic changed is I'm trying to bring up maybe Pierre and Aberdeen. If I can find those slides, I would like to bring them up for you because I think some of those are also pointing at the possibility for fog when we go through the month of November. Yes, this is the one I really wanted to bring up was Aberdeen. So dating back August 18th and 19th, 27th and 28th, those were 2 days in a row that we had with thick fog, 18th, 19th, 27th, 28th. So that points to the second half of November to see if we start to get a little more busy with our precipitation. November 17th, 18th, and then again November 25th and 26th. So, of course, that being really close to Thanksgiving. Not sure about the date of Thanksgiving. I should probably know that before I talk about it. But the second half of the month may end up being a little more busy than what's expected for the first half of the month. And we talked about our weather pattern going into November will be dominated by Pacific air, will be dominated by that high-pressure system into Texas, and then eventually with our zonal flow to keep these temperatures real close to 60 degrees. A couple of days, of course, will be above that. And, if we get a cold front or two to run through, we could obviously see some cooler days with temperatures retreating back at or below average. But for that to happen, we'll need, what I would consider a stronger front compared to what we've been having lately to bring those temperatures back down, probably to the 40s by that time, because I really think much of next week will be in the 60s. And then by the time we do get into next weekend, the climate average high is close to 50 degrees. So we'll need a stronger front to bring those temperatures back down to where they should be. We are looking at snow depth across the area. So, really nothing to speak of. And then over the next 2 weeks, notice those dots that we have across eastern South Dakota. That's coming in from Halloween, what's in our forecast for tomorrow, just some scattered activity. So some of us might be able to pick up our first measurable snow. As I mentioned, that should come in at around 1/10 of an inch, not a trace, but around 1/10 of an inch. And this is something that we've been following too, the first measurable snow when we can see that. And I've been looking at this since the middle of September. And I've been dividing this up into the dates of the 10th, 20th, and 30th, depending on the month and depending on how far out our forecast goes. So today's update, now you look at this. 8 of the 100 models shown here giving us measurable precipitation by the 10th of November. I know Brian Karstens talked about this yesterday too. It just shows us that the model is picking up on that warm air, not able to bring in any snow or any type of precipitation, really, for that matter. Will just be dry, I would say, for at least the first half, maybe first week or two of November. So, but look at that number, 8 compared to the average now down to 42 through the 10th, through the 20th, it's 45. The average is now 71. So those numbers have really started to fall back as compared to what we've had for the averages. And even in Rapid City, western South Dakota, you see how those temperatures, the temperatures, but the models that are coming in with that first measurable snow by the 10th of November, it's saying 26 out of 100. And look at the average, 84. So it is picking up on that trend of bringing in that warm air, and I would say that dry air too. And then by the time you hit the end of the month, I'll bring up those numbers for you. You see that the new numbers are suggesting 82 of 100 in Sioux Falls and 99 out of 100 in Rapid City. So we'll see where this takes us as we go through the month of November. And that's my time for today. Thank you for joining us on this latest edition of Whether or Not. Have yourself a great day.